Solo, a Star Wars story. All right, so I'm going to talk about it. And I'll just start out here. When I when Solo was being made, and I was hearing a lot of the troubles the production was having. It's not frequently a great sign when directors get replaced. Although to be fair, some of the movies that are considered some of the greatest movies ever made have replaced directors. Uh, and please feel free to fact check this, but I'm fairly confident it's true. Movies like Gone with the Wind and Wizard of Oz. I hate Gone with the Wind, but that's besides the point. I was skeptical of Solo when it was being made because I heard about the directors being replaced and all the other production issues it was having. And so that sort of really took the wind out of my enthusiasm, as it were, the sails of my enthusiasm. Um, that being said, having actually seen the movie now, oh, and I was also skeptical of the trailer, which just looked kind of, yeah. But having actually seen the movie now, I can say this. It's actually good. It is actually a good movie. It's actually entertaining. It doesn't have the uneven element of when they changed directors on Justice League, where you could clearly be like, oh, wow, that's clearly Joss Whedon just fucking this up. It instead has much more of it feels consistent. There's a couple moments where you're like, well, that feels more like a Tim Miller and Phil Lord moment right there. I may have just fucked up their names. But you know who I'm talking about, the 21 Jump Street guys and the Lego movie guys. There are a couple moments where it's like, oh, that feels like one of their moments. But other than that, there's never a moment where like you feel everything feels out of place from this director clearly was changing this. Which is good. That's the last thing you would want it to have, having had that type of production cycle. So that doesn't really happen. The movie, and I was skeptical, but the movie honestly never did anything so blasphemous that I hated it. And it did honestly just enough to really win me over. And a couple moments I was like, oh, that's pretty fucking cool. Which I'll talk a little bit more about in the spoilers. The characters are all pretty great. The only thing I will say is that you kind of like, there's an element of you can kind of tell which characters are going to die because it's a prequel. So there's always sort of like a couple moments throughout the movie where you're kind of like, I feel like this character's going to die or that character's going to die or it won't make sense if this character lives. Which, if you don't mind being able to figure those things out, is not kind of really a problem, but also kind of sort of a thing you have to accept with prequels on a certain level. Like just as an example, the best example, and like I don't feel like this is a spoiler here, and I'm not saying this character dies or doesn't die, but Han has a love interest throughout the film. It's a driving force of the film. And like the thing is though, is that we've seen the future. We know he's with Leia. So whatever happens to her in this movie, you know they're not going to be together at the end in some capacity. Because, well, you know, Leia. We know how his romance ends. He has a wife and kids in the future, and it's Leia. So you know that's not gonna entirely work out for him, which sort of adds a level of suspense to whatever heartbreak is coming to him. So let's talk about real quickly the cast and the actors. I'm not. It's like Heinrich. I'm not gonna try and say his name. But he does. He actually. From the trailer, he had kind of more of like a Captain Kirk vibe. But when you watch the actual film, you can kind of see the Solo. You can see how that youthful optimism will shift to more of who he is as a more fully formed 30-something-year-old as opposed to an early 20-something-year-old as he is in this movie. It sets itself up where you can see like just enough of that character to be like, well, I can believe I'm seeing the older version when I see him in the other movies. So he does a good job with that, and I think it works. My personal favorite, of course, is Donald Glover's Lando Calrissian. Because Lando Calrissian is possibly one of my favorite Star Wars characters ever. I've always loved Lando Calrissian. Empire's favorite part of Empire Strikes Back. Love him in Return of the Jedi. The fact that he hasn't been in the prequels makes me so fucking sad. Like, please put Billy D. Williams in the new movies. Just even for a little bit. Give me that. Give me that. The movie is full of there are some surprising cameos in the movie. That I'll talk about those in the spoiler. But they're pretty cool. One of them is more of an actor cameo, and one of them is a character cameo. But we'll get into that. But so yeah. The rest of the crew. I believe. There's an android. There's always an android in a Star Wars movie. They have yet to make a Star Wars movie without an android. Just gonna point that out. Oddly enough, I've noticed this. Like the new movies have the little sort of R2-D2 replacement, but both Solo and Rogue One have had more of a stand-in for C-3PO. Although both of them have been more. Both of those droids are more badass than C-3PO. It's worth noting. They're less whiny and more ready to throw down in a fight, I've noticed. This one, the android, whose name I have forgotten. I want to say it's L3, L4, something like that. It's got an L in there. But she's like a militant droid rights type person who's constantly demanding equal rights for androids, which is kind of fun and has a couple moments to it that I think work. I feel like there's going to be people online who are going to throw like a weird SJW argument at that, and those people need to shut the hell up, because once you start seeing SJW stuff at places, you can literally find it anywhere where anyone's talking about equal rights and respect. So you all need to chill before you drive yourselves crazy with the equivalent of the new Red Scare. God, that is actually kind of what's happening with the SJW stuff. It's kind of like becoming like a weird Red Scare thing, only like a neutered Red Scare. I don't know. It's weird. Anyways. So that's the droid character's fun and has some things. This is not really a plot spoiler, but it was the one thing that was kind of thought was weird, is that there is an implied, possibly sexual relationship between Lando and that droid. Like, it's never, like, clearly stated, but it's heavily implied that they have a romance that goes beyond just being friends, which is super weird, but also it's space, so I can kind of accept it. Yeah, I'm surprised Disney let him keep that part. But it's implied. Or at least the very minimum, at some level of romantic attraction between the two, which is weird. It's very weird, but it almost kind of works in this universe. I don't know. There are some great moments in it. Of course, this movie features the Kessel Run, which delivers. Although I did feel like could have delivered a little bit more, although, like, it works. I will say that while I enjoyed Solo, it's no Rogue One. Rogue One is actually still one of my favorite Star Wars movies ever, and Solo doesn't reach quite that level of greatness. Solo does just enough to make me like it. It works here and there enough to make it all work for me as a moviegoer. But I don't think it ever really hits that Rogue One level. the okay, so ultimately that's really the only thing I have against the movie that doesn't when the only negative I really have against the movie is that it just doesn't hit the level that you want a Solo movie to hit. And that's not really a slight against the film. It's just that there's such a high bar for this level of character. It's like he's like Star Wars is Wolverine. The prequel has to nail it because if you don't nail it, there's going to be a certain level of disappointment. And ultimately, Solo is pretty great, but is pretty great good enough for Han Solo? That's a great question, and I don't know. Is it good enough for Han Solo? And there I go. This is how much Lando Calrissian is embedded in me. Is that every time I say Han, it's a conscious choice because subconsciously I'm saying Han. So, um, but that's sort of the thing. Is it never quite hits that level you want a Solo movie to hit. That being said, it's still a really good movie. It's still totally worth watching. In fact, the only real issue with this movie is that I can't recommend it. It's just not as good as Deadpool 2 or Infinity War, which it's competing against, which is unfortunate because ultimately what I have to say is I totally recommend seeing this movie. I just totally recommend seeing Infinity Wars and Deadpool 2 first if you haven't seen those movies already. Although statistically you've probably already seen Infinity Wars. But they're just better than Solo. Because they are epically great, while Solo is just pretty great. And so that's and I love Woody Harrelson. Woody Harrelson does a great job as sort of the mentor character to Han Solo. And I mean, all the it works. It really does. I did feel like that. Okay, so there is one plot contrivance that they sort of do to put a character along. Okay, so and they could have easily deleted like one line of dialogue. This really wouldn't have been an issue. Well, not one but there's a couple of lines of dialogue, and this wouldn't have been an issue at all. But like, so in the story, they have to go steal raw, unrefined coaxium from this mine, and the bad guy points out the fact that he doesn't really want to do that because there's a shaky alliance with the people who own that mine. And Han Solo basically points out that, hey, you guys might have an alliance with them, but we don't have an alliance with them, and they don't know we're working for you. And the bad guy's like, okay, yeah, no, that's a great idea. It works. And then the bad guy immediately decides, oh, by the way, though, you're going to take your female love interest character who works for me with you on this mission, with you so I can make sure you do it right. Now, the other thing about that is that it makes sense from a character motivation, but at the same time, like, she literally has a tattoo that identifies her as being in his clan, the Red Dawn. So if they get caught, the whole point of the Pike people not knowing that Han Solo and Woody Harrelson's characters work for the Red Dawn is completely undermined by them having a Red Dawn agent with them. So that moment doesn't really make sense. And I understand it's a plot contrivance to get her on the ship so that she can have her moments with Han Solo and we can explore their romance. But like, I felt like if they just left out a couple lines of dialogue there, it wouldn't be a problem. And it's a minor thing. It doesn't really, like, it's like a character who's smart enough to think of one thing, but then immediately undermines that thing with his next choice. It's dumb. Now, to be fair, in real life, people are dumb and people do dumb shit like that. But it's just kind of like, what are you doing there? But yeah, I had fun. I enjoyed it. There are some moments in it. The Chewbacca thing works. the Han Chewbacca thing works. I think they have good chemistry for they have really good chemistry for a character that spends the whole movie not speaking English. Um, some people complain that there's a scene where Han tries to speak Wookiee, and like I understand why that's a little off-putting, but at the same time, it also makes sense um, that he would try to make that extra step when he meets Chewbacca initially. Although after that point, Chewbacca seems to understand his English throughout the whole movie, so one wonders exactly. I mean, maybe it was just to get through to him because they are trying to kill each other at the beginning. Um, but yeah, I also there's like a four-armed pilot character who I gotta be honest, like didn't really I didn't get what he was throwing down. Just like I felt like his performance was odd. The actor who was playing him, and I don't know. There's one character I was kind of like, but anyways. There's also some space pirates, and there's a plot twist to go along with the space pirates later on, which is pretty cool. All the stuff in the trailer that I was kind of skeptical of, the movie does a good job of justifying and makes sense, and I thought it works. So Solo, a Star Wars story, I liked it. I think it works. I think it's solid. It's not quite what one would hope for in total from a Solo movie, but it's good, and it is worth watching. Absolutely, absolutely go see it, especially if you're a Star Wars fan. Um, Definitely. So I recommend Solo. It is actually good. I give it an 8. Like I said, it doesn't quite hit that Rogue One level that I want. It's not worth seeing over Deadpool or Infinity Wars if you haven't seen those yet. Incidentally, go see those. They're amazing. Um, but Deadpool does a really great job. I'm sorry, Solo does a really great job at being in numerous points and places. It won me over. Okay, so I'm gonna go into spoilers here in a second. But so I give it a 9. I'm sorry, no, I give it an 8. It's an 8. 8. Um, Please like, subscribe, notifications, comment, share, watch my other videos. Okay, so we're gonna go into spoilers now. So, 3, 2. Wait, that doesn't make sense. 3, 2, 1. I'll figure out the hand thing later. So spoilers. Okay, so the main things that I want to talk to is first of all that forearm character I don't like dies, so it's not really a big deal. Didn't want to give it away, but like I said before, you kind of get a feeling for which of these characters is going to live and which ones is going to die pretty early on because they're just not in the other movies. Although one of those characters does live. The girl actually does live. The romance, because ultimately she chooses survival over being with Han Solo. She chooses the Red Dawn over him. Sorry on the spoilers for that. Um, the ending is pretty. The final ending sequence with the shenanigans that goes on there, I enjoyed. The two surprise cameos that I enjoyed as well. Warwick Davis is in it. Not in any makeup or costume either. He's just one of these space pirates, aka pre-Rebel Alliance. It's essentially what it's implied that they are. They are the pre-Rebel Alliance, which I thought was kind of a cool twist on them. And the whole backstory with what the pirates are doing, I think, works and is pretty cool. And it's pretty cool. I think it works. I think it all works really well. At least that part. There is one cameo. Oh, I should have mentioned this somewhat. The movie continues the trend of Rogue One by canonizing the animated universe and tying more into that. In fact, just like with Rogue One, there's a bunch of stuff that people might have complained about if they had not seen. This also goes for episodes 7 and 8. But there's definitely stuff people would complain about if they haven't seen those cartoons. I haven't seen I have not watched the cartoons. I just read spoilers from the cartoons, uh, and have people who talk to me about the cartoons. And so some people online are probably annoyed by the Darth Maul cameo, but it is noted that in the cartoon, which is considered canon, it has already been stated that he survives. So knowing that, and which I did know going into the movie, I did not know he was going to be in the movie, but when it happened, I was like, oh shit, I like that. I think that's cool that since it has been established since the Star Wars universe he survived being cut in half, that they bring him into a larger role here. The one thing that's kind of weird about the ending of the movie is and actually it's kind of what's disappointing, is it feels like the movie should be tying into another Star Wars film. It feels like there should be a sequel to this, or maybe another Star Wars story will pick up some of the story threads that are left sort of there at the end of this movie. And I kind of really hope that they do. Because I actually kind of want to see more of this fucking Darth Maul. I did count this as mildly kind of a character redemption for him. He doesn't do much in the movie. It's just revealed that he is the leader of Red Dawn. It's just revealed that he's the leader of the Red Dawn, which I thought was cool. Oh, I also really do think the switcheroo trick that Han Solo plays at the end of the movie works. I enjoyed it. Um, none of the twists were terribly shockingly surprising. I will say none of the twists were terribly shockingly surprising. The biggest surprise was the Darth Maul thing. Almost all the other twists and surprises kind of not too terribly surprising. Um, the movie also had some cool examinations of the colonialism of the Empire and whatnot, which I should mention in the non-spoilers, but it's okay. Um, and I love Lando Calrissian. That's all. Um, I could go into more spoilers, but that's really where I'm going to draw the line today because I don't really like going over total story points unless they really bother or blow me away. But yeah, so I do recommend Solo, a Star Wars story. Check it out. Give it an 8. Like, subscribe, comment, all that jazz. I'm gonna leave that sneeze in the video too. You wait and see.